It was the evening of December 14th, 2024, in Chehankalo village, central India. Priya, in her mid-30s, lay in bed, waiting for her 35-year-old husband, Anand Yadav. The quietness of their house was a painful constant, reminder of her deep sadness, years of struggling to conceive, a child and the fear that time was running out for them to have a family. As Priya attempted to push the sadness away, the bathroom door opened. Anand emerged, not dressed for bed but in his bathrobe. He was acting strangely, and his face was an alarming bright red. Before Priya could ask what was wrong, Anand turned and bolted out of the bedroom and out of the house. Priya rushed out to find Anand collapsed on the ground outside. He was unresponsive, his face still beet red, completely confused, and having no idea what was happening to her. Healthy young husband? Priya rushed next door to gather relatives. Together, they scooped up the unresponsive Anand and raced him to the nearest hospital. Priya ran into the hospital screaming for help. Medical staff rushed Anand on a gurney into an exam room. From the side, Priya watched the primary doctor attempt to revive Anand. After a few brief attempts, the doctor sat back, a look of pity washing over his face. He turned to Priya and delivered the devastating news. Anand was dead. The speed of the tragedy left Priya unable to process her grief. Her primary thought was not sorrow, but a desperate question: what killed him? Anand was 35, healthy and happy. There was no obvious reason for his sudden demise. The doctor had no answer, stating only an autopsy could determine the cause. A few days later, the hospital pathologist began the autopsy. The doctor, who had performed countless such procedures, first checked Anand's heart, suspecting a sudden cardiac arrest. The heart was perfectly healthy. He then examined the lungs and all other major organs. Everything appeared normal. There was no medical indication as to why this man had died. The pathologist moved on to the throat. He made an incision, and as he opened Anand's throat, he instantly recoiled, gasping in shock. In his entire career, he had never seen anything like it. It was revealed that Anand, also heartbroken over their inability to conceive, had secretly sought help for their fertility issues. Anand had not gone to a licensed medical doctor. Instead, he had consulted a tantric, a practitioner of occult magic. The tantric had given Anand instructions for a ritual that supposedly guaranteed he would father a child if performed correctly. Anand, believing the occultist, had gathered the necessary items. On the night he died, while Priya was waiting in bed, Anand performed the ritual in the bathroom. The tantric's instruction was simple. Anand had taken a living baby chicken, a chick, and attempted to swallow it whole. The small animal became fatally lodged in his throat, and Anand suffocated within minutes. Tragically, the chick also died. This bizarre ritual was the cause of his sudden, unbelievable death. Part 2. The Sacrifice on the Cliff, John Perrin. In late November 1979, 64-year-old John Perrin walked through a forested park near his home in East London, South Africa. This was highly unusual. John was a near-total recluse, rarely leaving his home and speaking only occasionally to a distant cousin. Today, however, a strange, unexplainable intuition, a gut feeling, had compelled him to take this walk. As John followed the coastal trail, he rounded a bend and saw a young man pacing anxiously ahead. The young man looked highly distressed, moving back and forth towards the edge of a massive cliff overlooking the crashing ocean below. John, who felt a strange purpose for being there, continued closer, curious about the man's odd behavior. The terrifying realization dawned on John. The young man was contemplating suicide, building up the courage to jump from the deadly drop. A small crowd of other trail walkers had also noticed and gathered, watching from a distance, paralyzed by the fear of startling him. As John stood there, everything clicked. He realized his powerful intuition had brought him here for a specific reason: to interact with this young man. John broke from the crowd, walked up to the pacing stranger, and put his arm around him. John looked the young man in the eyes and said two unforgettable sentences. "I'll show you how it's done." Then, John walked directly to the edge of the cliff, jumped, and plummeted to his death on the beach below. The young man was utterly shocked and horrified, watching the sudden, graphic, and fatal action of a stranger doing exactly what he had come to do was an awful spectacle. The sight was so shocking and final that it triggered a sudden, profound realization. He did not want to die. He felt immense gratitude toward the stranger who had sacrificed his life, showing him the devastating finality of the act and inspiring him to live. Part 3. The Silent Killer, Train A217. At 1 a.m. on March 3, 1944, young operator Michelle Paulo stood in the caboose of a slow-moving freight train ascending a mountain in southern Italy. Conditions were hazardous. Rain and snow made the tracks slick. The train was using low-quality coal due to WT shortages, and it was dangerously overloaded. The train carried not just crew and freight, but over 500 stowaways fleeing the war. Michelle knew they might not make it, and he was ready on the brake lever to prevent a deadly backslide. Michelle watched anxiously as the struggling train approached a tunnel ahead. He calculated that the tunnel, offering dry tracks, would allow them to gain the necessary momentum to make it over the mountain. As the front of the train entered the tunnel, he felt a brief surge of speed, but then, inexplicably, the train began to slow again. The train continued to slow until it finally ground to a complete halt. Michelle, in the caboose, was the only person just outside the tunnel. The remaining 99% of the train, and all 500+ people, were now sealed inside the long, dark tunnel. Michelle waited for the series of emergency whistles from the conductor, but heard only silence. Operating on a bad feeling, Michelle abandoned his post and began walking toward the tunnel's entrance. Inside the first car, he heard a loud thumping sound outside, hitting the rocks along the tracks. He walked through 2 cars, noticing a profound, unnatural quietness. He finally turned on his flashlight and scanned the rows of stowaways. What he saw was so horrifying that he instantly dropped the light, turned, and ran out of the tunnel. Michelle's intuition was tragically correct. The poor quality coal and the excessive weight of the train had caused it to halt. To attempt a jump start, the engineers had to dump a huge amount of the cheap coal into the furnace. This large quantity of low-quality, poorly burning coal produced a lethal, concentrated cloud of carbon monoxide that instantly filled the sealed tunnel. The gas silently killed virtually everyone on board. Michelle's single car being outside the tunnel saved his life. The thumping sound he heard was the sound of bodies, killed by the poisonous gas, rolling off the train and onto the rocks below. Out of the approximately 600 people on board, 521 were found dead.